12 reasons you'll be successful at changing your habits and lifestyle, and 12 reasons you won't. I wanted to bring this topic to you today because we can all relate to having some type of habit or something in our life that we're wanting to change. And we can recognize that sometimes that can feel challenging, or we run into these roadblocks that keep us from making that change. And before we know it, we are reverting right back to that old habit or that old way. And not really getting where we want to go. So we've all heard that saying, right? I've taken a couple steps forward and now I've taken a couple of steps back. And so these 12 things are really going to help you get clear on what you may need to incorporate or what you may need to shift in order to become more successful at changing the things that you want in your life. Hi, my name's Audra Coons, and I am a therapist expanded to life and relationship coach for heart-led women who really have a lot of drive. They really have big dreams and big goals for their life, and they really want to have it all. They want to have happy marriages, family. They want to they want to bring their heart into their work. Really want to make a big positive impact on humanity. And they want to do this without depletion, without overgiving or burning out. And so with that, there may be habits or things that they're needing to change so that they can really step into that best version of themselves and really bring to the world what they want to, that change that they want to see. And so let's just go ahead and dive in. So, number one thing that people, the, the number one thing is becoming more self-aware. And so, what this means is really being able to become aware of the things that are influencing how we're operating. So this can be things like our thoughts, our beliefs, our attitudes, our mindset, our emotions, all of these different things that make up our behavior that really influence the steps and actions that we're able to take in our life or that we're not able to take. And so, to be successful at changing any habit or improving your lifestyle, it's really crucial and to have that starting point to become more self-aware, to really practice that recognizing how our thoughts are influencing again what we're able to do or how our emotions are getting in the way of things. And so this can go a little bit further, even at looking at the beliefs that we hold. And these might be things that we've picked up from our childhood, from our upbringing. They may be things that are within, as a whole, as a collective, that we all have been operating based on, but they're really keeping us from making the change that we want. So that first step is really becoming more self-aware. Number two is cultivating a growth mindset. And so what that means is that we recognize our ability to change, our ability to learn skills, grow, and evolve, and not stay just the same. And so, if you've ever used that statement or you've heard others say, right, this is just how I am, that would be more of a fixed mindset, recognizing or believing that this is just how I am, this is how my personality is, these are my habits, and there's not really any changing that. And that really keeps us stuck in a state that is going to make it very, very difficult to change our habits, improve anything in our lives. And so we really want to cultivate that growth mindset, recognizing that we are always learning and changing, and that we have the ability to not only learn the skills to do the things that we want to do, but also to recognize that we can change our traits. We can change how we think, how we believe, how we feel. All of those things that make up our identity of who we are is something that can shift and grow over time. And so this is something absolutely necessary if we're wanting to change our lives, and certainly if we want to be successful in with our families or in our careers or business. So, number three is having clarity on a vision, our vision. What is our vision, right? Recognizing what do we what do we want? What's the purpose behind the change that we're seeking or the thing that you're trying to change or improve? What's that overall vision that I have for it? What's that end goal of what I want that to look like? And really, what's the purpose behind that? So really getting clear on what that is. So then that way we know we can, determine what are the steps that I'm going to need to take to get there. And so really, really getting clear on that is one of a good early step as you are planning for making change. Which leads me to number four, which is setting clear goals. So once you have that clear vision and you've checked in and you're cultivating that mindset, recognizing that you can learn, you can grow, we really want to set clear goals. One way to do this is SMART goals. You've likely heard this term. You may even know what that means. And it's really, really, can seem like a basic concept, but it really breaks it down. And so SMART goals stands for specific, it's measurable. Our goal is also attainable, meaning that we get it, realistic, and sensitive or time, we're giving that a time frame. So really, this helps us kind of add some structure and make sure that it is in how we're going. I'm actually a little challenge in my goals is to make 50 of 2025, right? That's very specific because I know how and or not. I was able to see, is this something that I feel is or realistic for me? And then it gives a time frame knowing that we have the rest of this year. So we've got these last but half-ish months to make happen. So that's one example of our goal to ensure we'll achieve. So number five, people who are successful at changing their habits and lifestyle, then they need a authority. So what this means is you have the ability to includes all things, come up with managing the thoughts that we have, managing our and how those might be influencing our behavior or even our reactions, right? So if we're not having that strong self-authority or management, we may have a challenging time regulating emotions, or we may have our boundaries for our life have become loose, or maybe they're not really set or established. And so our energy and our time is getting taken up by things that really aren't priority or aren't focused towards the goals that we have for our lives, the goals towards those changes that we want to make. And I don't know about you, but right, there is a lot of information coming at us. There is a lot of stimulation coming at us with all of the access that we have to technology and social media. I love the internet, so that of course we're going to be using it, but being able to really manage that, because otherwise, right, we're just so bombarded, it's so easy to lose our focus, or before we know it, all of our time has gone to the thing and we still haven't, set that intention or put the focus towards what we really are wanting to do in our lives. So really practicing having a strong authority and learning how to respond to life experiences rather than reacting. So, number six is crafting your consumption. So, again, as I was mentioning, there's so much that we have access to and so many outlets that we have on different platforms. We really need to be intentional about what and how we're consuming. So, that could be, how often we're spending time online or on different platforms, but it can also be, uh, what types of things we're consuming. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed just such a shift and change for myself is when I really started being intentional about who and what I'm consuming and making sure that it is aligned and in value or aligned to my values and things that I care about. So I'm not just looking at all these different things that really aren't important to me. I have not used any of these apps, but I know that there are some apps out there that can help you manage how much time you're spending. I had a friend who was just talking about the Opal app, and they really loved it because it was able to monitor how, they were able to set how long that they wanted to consume. Of course, we know our phones you can look at screen time, but the more that we, again, are becoming more self-aware as well as intentional, we can really, figure out and look at how much time we are spending consuming and then what it is that we're consuming. Because, right, we know that there's plenty of things that can really bring our energy down. There's plenty of things, especially in our world today that really can feel, we know there's tragedies going on. We know there's devastation in the world. And so a lot of those things can really, really take a lot of our energy and bring us into a place that's not going to, support us wanting to make these changes in our life, which is ultimately what's going to help all of us as a whole is if we're continuing to better ourselves individually and then, right, as a community and as a whole. So, number 6 is crafting your consumption. Number 7 is having self acceptance. So, this also includes self compassion. And so, this really means meeting yourself where you're at, right? It can be so easy, especially if we're not aware of the thoughts and that are running of what we're operating on, to recognize how judgmental we can be on ourselves, right? That's one of the definitely a primary main thing that I work with clients on. And when we start doing this work, that they notice just how mean they can be to themselves, how harsh they can be and judgmental, versus really kind of becoming our own internal cheerleader and supporter and also kind of coach, right? So it's not just about cheering ourselves on, but also being able to hold ourselves accountable and recognizing that. But we've for us to do that, we've got to have that self-acceptance and really cultivate that self-compassion, to treat ourselves lovingly as we are working towards changes and we are coming up against challenges or things that feel hard sometimes. So really recognizing how we talk to ourselves and what that internal voice is saying. And another thing to know about our internal voice is you're becoming more self-aware and you're recognizing the thoughts is just the, not just how that voice sounds, but also you might recognize that voice is made up of the people that we're closest to. So, particularly, right, if our loved ones might have different opinions or things they've shared, that voice, that is part of our voice in our internal dialogue, is what I call that, our internal dialogue. We also know that this is something that's formed from, right, very young age. And so we can often recognize that that internal dialogue does have our parents, our close, immediate family members. And then as we age, it would be people that are, close to us in our lives. So it's really important to recognize what that inner voice is saying, what the tone is, and how accepting and compassionate that can be as we are trying to make changes, or if it's really beating ourselves down or being judgmental, or even getting stuck in that fixed mindset of thinking that we can't make the change. So, number 8 is if we want to be successful at changing habits and lifestyle, we've got to develop some resiliency and strength. And so, what this means is having the ability to adapt and keep going during challenges. So it's not giving up, right? It's recognizing when we have perceived failures, and recognize that I say perceived because that's how we're taking that in. So recognizing if I am um, viewing something as a failure versus recognizing that I may be learning a skill. Um, I may have learned, a mistake happened or something happened where I can learn from that. That's an opportunity to learn and then, again, adapt and kind of shift wherever we need to so that we can keep going. So, one of my favorite sayings that my husband has shared with me, and I know it's from, I don't know the reference right now, but is that we are stopping 3 feet from gold, right? And so really recognizing that, we may be giving up right before we're there, right? And so it's really important to have that resiliency and be able to adapt as we're facing the challenges, especially when we're trying to change a habit, because the default is to return back to what our brain, what our body is used to. And in the beginning of making a change, it really takes that intentional effort and that strength to keep going, right? Until that becomes more natural, right? So as we're changing habits, in the beginning, it's that really conscious effort. As we do it over and over and have that repetition, it becomes more natural, right? And that's where it can become, we don't have to be as conscious about it, and it becomes like our second nature. So, number 9 is taking aligned actions. So, really, again, we've got to be clear on what our vision is, what our goals are, and then that makes it a lot easier to take these aligned actions. And from there, we can make progress built on the momentum. So once we're doing, one step, then we can keep building on that. So if you are working on cultivating a movement routine or a regular exercise routine, right? As you start, you may start with, just 5-10 minutes, right? Taking a short walk or getting a little movement in, that will be built on momentum. So each step that you take, so the next day, then take that 10 minutes. Say you miss a day, and then, rather than feeling upset or beating ourselves up, build on that momentum. So continue doing it. Pick back up where you left off if you've missed a day. Right? We're also holding ourselves accountable with that self-authority. We can continue building on that momentum. So number 9 was taking aligned actions. Number 10 is people that are successful at changing their habits or lifestyle is they will seek out the support that they need. So that may look like coaches, mentorship, um, an accountability partner, learning different skill sets, and it may involve therapy as well. So it depends on where you're at and recognizing what it is that you're needing and the support that's going to help you get there and really seeking that out. It could also be a trainer to help you learn those skills, or, so many, depending on what you're trying to change, but just recognizing that you're not going to do it alone, and that to be successful, really having that support and the skill set, learning that is what's going to help you get there. Number 11 is designing your environment to be supportive and expansive. And so our environment is what's around us. So that may be, our household, our work environment, our office setting. Those are the people that we surround ourselves with, again, the things that we're consuming. All of those things are our environment. And so, really shaping that to be supportive and expansive, and things that are going to reinforce the changes that we're wanting to make, right? I think a classic example when people are talking about uh, like wanting to stop drinking or something like that. If they're hanging out, at the bar or with people who are drinking, that's not aligned. And that's, one example that may have not be what you're doing at all, but right, we've got to look at where are we spending our time and energy? What is our environment like? Another example that might be a little bit more more relevant for you is just even our home environment, especially for many of the women that I work with, is looking at, right, do I have a clear, clean space? Is my space inviting, right? Or have things become like cluttered? Is there a lot of just stuff that's kind of that stagnant kind of energy versus right, that movement and flow? And so when our environment is very inviting and welcoming or open, it's clean and clear, that also helps our mind be clean and clear. And so those are things that can really help uh, looking at what our environment is like. So, you would want to take an inventory and then see what that is for you. So there's a lot of different ways that we might cultivate that. Number 12 is having discipline and devotion. And so, what I mean by this, I'm going to go through each one and the importance of having both. And so, discipline is really that structure and the structure that we're putting in place to help us, right? That is also the actions that we're taking, right? So, having discipline is being able to be consistent in taking those actions and building that momentum, as we're building a new habit, as we're until it becomes more second nature, we really need that structure and discipline to help us get there. With devotion, we also need that, and that's really the why behind it. What's our purpose? And we might be able to check in, with our heart. What are we valuing? Why is this important to us? Why do we even want to be making the change? Right? That's the devotion. That's the why. Why do we care? Why do we want to do this? And what I've noticed in my own life and with others is that we often are maybe more heavily on one or the other, right? So if we had a lot of discipline with no devotion, right, we might be kind of in that hustle, we might be really rigid and structured, but that may not last because it's so rigid and we're not really sure why we're doing it, that effort, and it feels tiring, we may end up giving up, right? Where if we have all the passion, the devotion, the purpose, and we know why we want to do it, but we're not taking any action or have any discipline to have consistency, that's not going to help us get there either, right? And so we've got to bring the two together and have both, right? And then that way, when things are feeling challenging, or right, when we're having a day where we're not really feeling like doing something or taking that action, we remember why it is that we're doing it, right? And then we implement that discipline to help us continue taking that consistent action, even if we're having an off day or we're feeling emotional or whatever it might be. So, number 12 is really bringing those together and having discipline and devotion. So, I really hope that you found these helpful. And what you can do is kind of go back through this video, see which one of these that you need to spend more, that you need to really kind of like refine or hone in on, and see which ones of these might be getting in the way of you making the change that you want. And really just practice, right? Just start where you're at, and maybe pick a couple that are the biggest challenges for you and start working on those, right? And then one by one until you have all of these, and just see how that changes when you are working towards new habits and bettering your lifestyle. So, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next one.